Okay.
Okay, doke.
Hi,
Hi,
Linda.
Jennifer.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. How
Great.
are
Well,
you?
good. I just had a good nap with Livia, my cat. So,
Cute cat.
yeah, I'm feeling kind of refreshed and went to a job fair today with my sister Reagan, and that was good. Um, so, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. I went down to Weight Watchers, and it's always interesting listening to people on different ranges of food and addictions and just people sharing. I think what's changed in Weight Watchers. My mother was very resistant to doing Weight Watchers
Yeah.
because I think the old style was a certain way. And now it's a completely different thing. And it's really about eating and being healthy and actually exercise and doing that. And in this meeting, there's probably 50 people. So it's always interesting listening, and the men, several men, as to what, when they're on the treadmill and doing this and doing that. So I'm always sort of the quiet one there, but it's fascinating. And I'm glad to be a part of it because this particular location has several meetings, and it just shows me again how people need support. And
Yeah. Yeah.
and one woman was talking today about how she met her best friend, and she's a woman 80 in this meeting. So people are looking for people and support.
Absolutely. And how often do you go to the meetings?
I only go once a week, but some of the people, since it's in Reading, it's kind of like they have meetings Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, well, every day of the week in the morning, and then they have a few night meetings. So several of the people just kind of run in and weigh in and check in and say hi and do stuff. So it's really a gathering place. The smallest meeting is one evening, and maybe it's 30. The rest of the time it's 50 to 75 people.
So is tomorrow March 1st already?
Yep. Isn't that hard?
I know. And so it's like, I've been thinking about maybe doing, Food Addicts Anonymous or something again, and starting tomorrow, which means like just going cold turkey on carbs and sugar and starting to weigh and measure my food. And then giving me 4 months until I'm 50. And so it's always nice for me to have like goals like that, and even as we're talking now, I'm like a little confronted by my face, but
Not really. You look great.
thank you.
We're so critical of ourselves.
Yes. And so, but you and I have talked a lot about that, and, a lot about like food and other things about what we use to stuff or to avoid emotions or to comfort. And, I understand all of that. And so, I was actually talking to my sister, my older sister, about Weight Watchers. And she's diabetic. I don't want to talk too much about others. And just saying like, well, maybe we should do the Weight Watchers together. But even that, I don't know how much you pay for your program, but she was saying like $50 a month, and even that was daunting to her. So
the first month is free.
Okay.
And then usually it's 44, I think 95.
Okay.
But now see, my mom, talking about others, when I used to talk to her about Weight Watchers, what I was telling her, and I still feel this way, actually it's more so, it's about an eating healthy plan, that it's not a diet, it's a, from here on out. And a lot of people in this Weight Watchers have been diabetic, and they've gone down and they're not as diabetic and all this stuff, because it's really about eating healthy. So my mom, if you attain your goal weight, you don't pay anymore.
Oh.
So there's an incentive to do that. Now, my
wow.
mom, who was really resistant to going, she hasn't paid since August.
Wow.
I have like 2.5, 3 pounds to go. And I mean, I want to achieve my goal, but partly it's pain, but here's somebody who's resistant, and she achieved her goal and hasn't paid. So it's really kind of where you're at.
I know, but congratulations. That's exciting that you're within 3 pounds of your goal weight, Linda.
Oh, yeah. I've been there, though, since August.
You know, you should. Okay. I know, but you're honestly, you're so good. I mean, you get up and you go work out in the mornings and you go to spin, and it's impressive.
Well, like I've said to you, I don't just do it for me. It's really about changing my brain pattern. And if I can't share that with my clients, because I'm too tired, it's too cold, I don't want to go. Very rarely do I want to go. I mean, even when I go to Soul Cycle, which is a little more fun, I dread it. And then once I get there, I'm okay, of course, and then I'm glad it's done. But the thing is, we're in such an upheaval time now that we really have to work on changing those things. Yes. And the only person who can change them is ourselves.
Yes. So, yeah, go ahead.
No, I mean, so for me, it was like, I never really was driven to do that before. I mean, I was always exercising, that. But to go really early is not really appealing. I'd rather have coffee and hang out and, like everybody, and not go. But what I realized is if I put my clothes out and I put my clothes on and I almost like have one cup of coffee and run out the door, I will go. But if I don't do that, I won't go.
Right. So you're doing it to kind of set the pattern so that you can have like that platform to coach your clients from, right?
Right. That's a big part of it.
And what's your coaching practice called?
Well, basically, I work with professionals who feel, I'm just going to give you my message, that feel unfulfilled. And I help them find fulfilling relationships and a life that turns them on. And most of the people that I work with are big visionaries. So I support that in creating the vision and the life that they want. So that's the premise. And that's laced in with my spirituality, because I've been doing stuff since 1975. So I do a lot of the shamanic work and, have done some pretty far out things. So it's always laced in with the psyche and the support as a spiritual leader. So it's not just dry coaching. I, in some ways, I wish it was, because that would be simpler. But in the other way, that's not who I am. So, like I get an intuition to call and check in on you. I mean, that's completely psychic, and I go, oh, she's not okay today. Right. And that's what people don't realize about shamanism. It goes through you. So a lot of times, especially working with somebody like you that we've worked so intimately together, I really feel things very deeply. And as to the successes, oh my gosh, I applaud the successes. That's the goal, really, to have a fulfilling life, have great relationships, have fun, and everybody has down times. But, that's really going there. And like for you, living your success, being that person and really being authentic and knowing it in your heart, say, oh, I'm on the right track. I'm not going to get distracted by these crazy things.
Right. So, wow, there's a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
So I was just thinking about so I moved to Mount Shasta in 2013. Right around this time, it would have been like the beginning of April 2013. So we've known each other and have been working together for at least 4 years, but it might be 5. Do you remember when or was it not until 2014 that we started working together?
Well, from the first time, like you had a reading with me, and I remember I've told you this before, but I'd never told this to anybody. And I said to you after the reading, and we were socially out, I said, you're the kind of person I want to work with. And we kind of left it at that. And then in a few months, we fell into it, so to speak. And then we did, much more intimate work, whether it be running or being out in nature, the kind of work I like. We're not just sitting looking at each other. I mean, that's okay too. But going out, like coming over to your house and supporting you like that, that's very intimate, and a lot of people wouldn't feel comfortable with that.
Yes. Yes. I know. I was just starting to laugh thinking about all the times that we would meet up, and there'd be my coach and she'd be like, let's go for a run or a walk or, like how often does that happen that you're actually,
Yeah, but I dig that.
And then I get back from all the craziness in Amsterdam and you're like, I don't care that you just had a 14-hour flight or whatever it was, like, plus like getting back from Sacramento, you're like, get out here and let's go to the gym and go to kickboxing. And I'm like, are you for real? But I did.
You did it. Sometimes you weren't thrilled. You just looked at me like, oh my God. But you did it. That's the thing is, I mean, you've got to be proud of yourself because that was a really challenging time for a lot of reasons, not only energetically after a 14-hour flight, but also it clears your body of everything that had happened in Amsterdam. That wasn't my psyche hit on it. It was just, I wanted company.
You just did it because you wanted company. You're funny.
I did. I thought, come on, don't let this plane ride get in the way of us having fun. See, coaching should be fun too. It's not this, like, let's share your soul thing. We should be able to laugh and, go for a walk and do it because really, truly, sometimes the best information is when you're doing stuff like that and you do the clearing.
And we used to go to spin together and we'd go sometimes down to the headwaters.
Right.
And you would do drumming or, we'd be out in nature there. And so, and so I'm going to fast forward just a little bit to, like what's been at the top of my mind lately. But before I do, let me back up because I think there was a good segue in there to just address something. So first of all, like where is your website and what is your blog?
Okay, my website is www.lindamheld.com, and my blog is on that, and a lot of my information. And I have a women's retreat coming up May 26th and 27th. I'm only suggesting there's 20 women, and I've done that before. People always, you write down what you do. Well, what ends up happening, it gets to be pretty organic. As the people enroll, because I usually take people out in nature and we'll go to the falls, but I start with like a drumming and an opening and a journey usually because finding out where everybody is, and then it sort of sets the pattern of where we go and what happens. And it's empowerment and stressing like the Me Too movement because so many women haven't been heard in jobs, in relationships, and I want it to be a format so that maybe if something has come up, because a lot of that's what's happening with the Me Too movement, women are remembering circumstances, whether it be a boss or a lover or a husband or, just a coworker that's treated them badly. And so I want to be able to have that kind of format. So if when we go for a walk, that if people want to talk about that sort of stuff, because like I said, that's sometimes the best way to clear it is being out in nature and just sharing with other women. And then in July 27th to the 30th, I'm doing a small group vision quest. And that will be here in Mount Shasta. And that means that they go out for 3 nights and pray and meditate. But there's a prelude to it, which means you'll work with me for at least 6 weeks ahead of time, kind of getting ready and kind of preparing for a vision quest. And then for maybe 3 sessions after to kind of integrate what you got from a vision quest. So those things are on my website also.
Oh, okay. So you'll put them up there, and you'll put the pricing and registration and everything up,
right,
for people who want to know more.
Right.
And how long have you had your coaching practice and your spiritual business? And
well, I've been doing it probably, if you said specifically from 89 to 91, that's when I did my first group on Vision Quest. And then right after that, I had an office in San Carlos, and I was leading groups for the Artist's Way Women's Group. I had like 4 groups going, and I had a couple groups that went on for, 2-3 years. So I've been doing that sort of thing and shamanic work and taking people in Sweat Lodge and Vision Quest since 91 pretty much. And like I said, and then when I moved to Mount Shasta, it sort of changed the venue of it, meaning I'm now in Mount Shasta.
Right. And then now more and more stuff's coming on online, would you say? Um, which might open up a bunch of, kind of gateways for more people to find you, right?
Right. Right, because
And
that's was always one of the problems. And even though I've been on the internet for I don't know how many years, maybe 12, 13, still until Facebook and some of these things really got out there, it was hard for people to find and know where even to go, because we've had our website since 2002, and that's www.mountshasta.herbandhealth.com. And we've had that, and I always had my section in it. But still, unless people came to Mount Shasta, it was a little more challenging. Of course, now with the way the internet is and really coaching and promoting yourself, it's getting easier and easier to be contacted, in a lot of different ways, in Twitter and, Pinterest and all of that. So it's making it easier in some ways and challenging in others, because there's so much on there.
right. That makes a lot of sense. And so, one thing that probably helps then is that you have your retreats or other things, and then it can also become word of mouth, or
Right.
people can share that with other people.
And I also do private stuff. I've had different people come up. I had a gal from Panama, and so we did a VIP. So for 4 days, it was just her and I, and that's a little more expensive because it's private. And it starts around 9, and we finish at about 5 in the afternoon. But it's concentrated, planning not only like journeys and going to a spa, and I had her have a massage and various things. But like I said, it's a little more expensive and more intense. And I also do like 4 and 5 women or men too at a time, and just having more consulting and private work.
That's great.
Mm-hmm.
So you were saying really you started doing your vision quests in 89, you said?
91 specifically, yes.
And then 91. And for me, I kind of flashed on, 89, a lot of the YouTubers now maybe weren't even born then. And
Right.
it's great though. I mean, because it's I find myself learning from them. A couple of the women that I'm learning from about the dark night of the soul now are maybe 25, maybe younger.
I saw those. Yeah.
One's in college, and they have so much wisdom, and you try not to get resentful. I try not to get resentful. It's my Scorpio rising side of me, but being wow, they have so much wisdom at so young. And here I am almost 50, and I'm now going through something, and Landmark used to say, I've done a lot of Landmark, as you know, and they used to say that context. Whoa, you got a truck going out there?
Mm-mm.
We just got a really big noise. Did you hear that?
No, I didn't.
Okay, that was odd. Very odd. It sounded like a big volume. I don't know if I hit. Anyway, that was strange. But anyway, Landmark used to say context is decisive. And so having an empowering context can help you. And so, I just appreciate this time with you, because I've been feeling a little bit of an urge to get online and, get vulnerable and start sharing with people. And some of the YouTubers are saying, do it. They're saying get out there. It's really important, because you never know who else you're helping.
Right.
And so, yeah. And so, I'm in also, a pretty big breakdown in some ways in my life right now, where, I'm not working, I don't have my own home currently. And here I'm going to be 50, not married. So many things going on. And, I can laugh, but I also just felt a little pop of the grief come up as well. It's okay, who knew I'd be clueless at 50? And so, one context could be, all right, I'm a failure. What happened? And when you and I met, I was at this point where, for whatever reason, I had taken a risk, and I had left my day job that was very good in San Francisco. And was consulting, and I felt immediately rewarded for that jump. I think I had enough people that I had worked with in this organization that had a very good reputation, that word of mouth came back at me, and I just kept getting clients, and I kept getting paid more and more money, and it just kept coming. And I'm like, okay, sure. Yeah, I'll take it. So then, as I went through that, and then I suddenly had money, and maybe was over generous, but certainly was over generous to myself, but also had an amazing time, traveling and taking a lot of courses and, doing all those things. And then that ran out, and I moved to DC. And then, as you know, I got, unceremoniously dumped from my job in October for no reason other than for being an awesome, powerful woman who threatened people around her and wasn't supported. Right.
Right.
So at least that's my story. But that felt pretty close to my experience. Just was never, was never allowed to be fully self-expressed in that job, and was certainly never acknowledged or supported.
Sorry.
Yeah, no problem.
Oh no, my cell phone just fell on the floor. Sorry.
No worries. And so, here I am, and it's like, okay, now what? And you've been amazing, and I do want to talk about like one of your more recent blog posts about this, but like, you've been amazing with me. Like, you haven't given up on me.
Mm-mm.
Even though there's been years where I've been a client and have been able to pay for your services, and now I can't, and you've worked out trades, and you're just like sticking with me, even though it's like, okay, maybe you shouldn't. And so I don't know what I want to say about that, other than and like, I think I've struggled with it too, because you're so friendly that I think sometimes we wind up as your clients, like feeling like you're our friend,
Mm-hmm.
which in some way you are our friend.
Right.
But in some ways,
you, that's true. With you, that there's that. I don't have a lot of clients that are like that. They're, because of the things we've done. I have the one that she's been my client for over 10 years. Are we friends? And she's still my client? Definitely. But also I share more of my own personal stuff with them. And the ones that I wrote about in my blog are people I do not share my personal stuff, other than just comparison or storytelling, which is part of my coaching. But It's not as personal as I've shared with you or this other gal.
Yes. And I feel like for the most part, you keep pretty, like, even good boundaries with me, even though we've become friends. But thank you for just letting me address it. Cause it's like, maybe that's my way of saying I'm grateful. So, all right, well, let's set that aside and then go back to, so then, I've been getting really like in the past, we've talked a lot about how I'm a very powerful manifester, and especially at the time that we met, I was manifesting where I was receiving gifts from the universe, so to speak. Now I did hear that was like the year of, we had Jupiter in Cancer, and that's the giver of gifts and luck. And so who knows what it was like, but for whatever reason, I just received a lot of abundance at that time.
The train. Remember
okay.
The train in Mount Shasta.
I was like, okay, now do you hear that?
No, there really is a noise, right?
All right, good.
Not your imagination.
All right, good. And so, yeah, it's funny, like when the train comes in, it's like, I don't know, like clears my brain for a minute. But now I'm not manifesting, right? And now it's like, and I don't know if you had a chance to listen to the second video I sent you.
Both of them I did.
And I wish I knew these women's name, because I feel like I should give them a shout out or acknowledgement, but maybe later I'll figure out like how to put something in the credits or something. But anyway, she's from Ireland and she's 25. And she was saying that first of all, she's just saying interesting concepts that are catching my ear, but she's talking a lot about, because I listened to another one with her today. She's talking about shedding. And I think when she's talking about shedding, it's talking about shedding, like, because I'm having these experiences as well. It's shedding emotions. It's shedding like bottled up emotions.
Oh, shedding. I thought you said shedding. Shedding.
Oh,
shedding. Okay,
shedding,
got it.
Shedding. And she even said something about like memories, like a lot of memories were coming up for her when she was in the dark night of her soul. Mm-hmm. And I've experienced that too at different times. I'm also having a lot of like deep dreams about people like that I used to work with. And so I feel like shedding is happening for me too. Like I talked to you about like all these like old emotions are coming up, like related to my family, because I'm close to them right now, like, you know, in proximity. And so I don't know why I'm just babbling all of that at you, other than I'm sure there'll be a point that will come out about it. Go ahead.
Oh, well, I think the thing is when you're talking about the dark day of the soul, it's like what she's talking about, the Irish girl, is getting present with your emotions. See, when all the luck was happening, you'd feel up and down and sideways and this and that, but you weren't completely in it. And the difference is you are now in it.
Right.
You know? And so both people were talking about similar things, but yet very different. And at your point, it's kind of like, it's like both of those girls are old souls. I mean, you can just tell, right? But the thing is that you were living life then. And probably for you, it wasn't as in style as it is now for these people to share this stuff. I mean, imagine, 25 years ago.
No, thank you for bringing it up.
Yeah.
They might be in some ways pioneers though, because like the first one was saying that even her friends and her family
right.
like, don't expect them to understand you. And
right.
I could relate so heavily to that, because, jumping around, but like threading all of this together as I like to do, you were talking about how your ideal clients are visionaries. Well, I've had real honest to God visions,
right.
before. And that has caused my friends, when I have shared it, to think I'm crazy. But, and I'm not crazy, no. I really had a vision, and, and I'm sure if we go back in many, in time or whatever, or across cultures, there are people in the tribe who do have visions, and they wind up being the medicine people or the shaman. And I've been interested in shamanism since probably 1992. Mm-hmm. And was actually pursuing it at that time. But, at that time I was 24, 25, and I was also having a Kundalini awakening. I did have a Kundalini awakening in Thailand. And I know I did. And it was like, and I was having a spiritual awakening, but it's not linear. It's like, so all that happened in my 20s, and then I went through my 30s and 40s, and yeah, I had a few spiritual experiences, but I don't know. It's like part of me thinks I'm supposed to get someplace. And
no, I when I started doing stuff, I literally started meditating at 25, and then and meditating a lot. And the thing is, I think you go through ebbs and flows of how this works, because my first teacher used to meditate with Yogananda. And so when I was in it, and then you go for months where you're out of it, yes. Even though you're still having visions and you're still having mystical experiences. So yes. I would ask her, like, I don't feel like I'm doing anything. And right. She said, that's when you're digesting what you have learned. So we tend to be hard on ourselves then, because yes. Things aren't happening.
Right.
You might have a little spark here and there. And see, the thing is, when you call the dark day of the soul, what I see it too is you're going through a breakthrough of awakening and getting present. I don't see it as a negative. Okay.
I just want to laugh, right? Because I'm like, okay, really? It doesn't feel
Yeah.
like a break. It doesn't feel like a breakthrough. Like, and that's why.
Breakthrough, breakdown, whatever. Right.
Right. But I'm glad we're saying it, right? Because
Right.
like, that's what people point to, is that you will eventually have a breakthrough.
Right. But not when you're in the ground. Right.
Right. And right now I'm mostly in the ground. Like, I mean, I have good days and I have bad days, but I'm mostly in the ground. And so it's like, my soul just kind of lifted when you said it, and I kind of laughed. But then I'm like, okay, but where, it's terrifying. If you really let yourself get present to the fear of, where's my next job? What am I doing? Maybe some shame, whatever. It's like, but like all these people that I'm listening to, there's also a guy named Phil Isley that I like too. And he's pretty deep into this, but they say it's also a breakdown of old programming.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Right.
And so, yeah, I don't know what I want to say about it. Maybe there's something more for you there.
Well, I think the thing is that the breakthrough and the dark day of the soul is kind of identifying who are you really? Okay, maybe these two girls in their 20s and did it, and maybe you started doing it then. Maybe that was your like beginning foundation, because you're in a lot of relationship kind of similar as to where they were, and then you kind of went off and lived life and doing it. But now you're getting back to the true essence of who you are. And who do you want to relate to? Whether it be your family and friends and they don't fit, and people, no, most people won't understand the spiritual path. And I'm older than you, and I was telling one of my clients yesterday, and she's 32, and she says, I'm crazy. And I said, well, that'll always be a problem. Because when you're going through this awakening, whatever age you are, there are moments where it's so heavy that you feel insane, because most people won't understand you. You say, oh, I had this, and this is what happened, and this happened, and then this happened, and now I know this is going to happen. And they go, right. They just don't relate to it. So that's part of the growth of it, is trusting that craziness and the depression and the grief, no matter what. It doesn't stop.
Right. And the fear and, and maybe all of that's just life. But you said something that jarred me, because when I got into it, when I did my foundation, it started, I would say, when I traveled through Latin America with my friend Ted at the time. And, we were like 19 and super adventurous. And I was very connected. I mean, I started meditating on my own, reading every book I could about meditation. I felt connected to spirit. I started studying yoga on my own. And so by the time in 1991 that I went to Japan, I was meditating every day. By the time I got to Thailand, I was reading about Buddhism and shamanism. I also went and did intensive body work and learned Thai massage for 5 weeks.
All right.
Where we meditated and did yoga every day, and then did intensive body work on each other.
Mm-hmm.
And so by the time I got out to these small islands, I'm sure I just had a major Kundalini release. Like I remember sitting on the beach being like doubled over and being like, hearing like my internal voice saying, if you don't get rid of this pain, this stored pain, you're going to die, basically. And, and I felt the Kundalini energy go up my spine at one point. And, I had a big fear moment, because I had heard or read somewhere that, if it doesn't release properly outside of your crown, you can have all kinds of problems. And I'm not really sure if it released properly outside of my crown or not, And then I did get really sick, and, but then I came back to the States, and I needed a few months to kind of like clear out and integrate. But once I did, I was supercharged, and I was super clear, and I was like this, like very committed activist at that point. And I'm like, I am going to be an environmental activist. And I pursued it like nobody's business. And I got in front of Bill Clinton. I wound up getting in front and meeting Hillary Clinton at an airport in Las Vegas. Like I was sent out to meet her because of my political activism. I met US senators. I mean, I was on C-SPAN and CNN and, all of that. And I worked for the Sierra Club and, wound back up in San Francisco. And it's like all that energy I had harnessed in my spiritual exploration and practices, I channeled it into that. Right. And it wasn't always perfect. Like, you know, there would always be like personality dynamics. And so I think I just got to the point, I think I'm now at the point where I have burnt out, and maybe I'm just realizing my own cycle by verbalizing it with you.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
It's like I'm getting the image of like a tube of toothpaste, and I have just squeezed everything that I had in me out, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm just used up now.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm at ground zero in a way. And that's what I'm hearing about with the dark night of the soul, though, is that it is meant to, in a way, kill you, like kill your ego,
Right.
and kill your identity, because the identity is also something that is the programming,
Right.
you know, and that's pretty interesting. And so that then you kind of die. Like a lot of people use the analogy of the caterpillar going into the cocoon. And so, you know, these young women and others are calling it cocooning. And that's why it's hard to, like, maybe that's why I'm blessed right now that, you know, I'm not working, but I have shelter and I have some money coming in from unemployment. And it's like I forget, but remembering that my needs are provided for. So I'm lucky that I'm taken care of in this time where I'd have really not a lot to give. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, you don't really, when you're in this, you don't want to. I mean, you not only are you unable to, but you really have to be selective. Like when you were telling me what your plan was for Friday or whatever day it was, I thought, wow. I mean, because sometimes you just have to rest, you know?
Right. And that's what these ladies and others are saying is like sometimes all they could really do was like sleep, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and others. And I'm finding that I'm going to bed very early. I'm getting a lot of rest. So, and then hopefully it'll be like what you were saying is like, and then what I'm now getting like for myself, like as a little bit of a guide or a map, is like reminding myself, you know, spirit is there. And I'm hearing people also say, like, when you're going through an awakening, try to get your spiritual practices going. Like, even if you don't want to, even if you don't want to, like, even if you don't expect anything from it. Right. Like I keep talking about doing yoga and I don't really want to do yoga. Right.
Come on, like by 6 o'clock in the morning.
Well, or that, or going walking,
no,
or
but like that's what I'm saying. You're not dying to do it. Believe me. Right. And that's the point of a practice. You do it even when you're not dying to do it. It's more for that grounding. It's not, you know, what you get out of it. It's the fact that you develop a practice and then God comes in and guides you better, because it's sort of like the old Catholic thing that if you do your prayers and then the miracles happen, but if you just kind of hang out and wait for God to show up, it's not going to happen. You have to have sort of an intention, you know, to like what we did with the angels. When I'm just talking about a process that we did, inviting the angels in our life. I had done this practice, I don't know, like a year ago, and I asked different people, and they said, oh no, I'm not interested in that. And as you know, it was really easy. And it's like asking God to come into your life, or an angel. Are you kidding? I'm too busy. I'm too tired. I mean, I don't know. And that's kind of where you're at. You're asking that energy to come into your life and to fill you up. But then you also have to participate. You know, it's kind of like you have to light the candle. You have to open the door. You have to ask that spirit to come in, you know, and not just party or be crazy and say, oh, you know, this is going on. Because it always shows up then. You know, it just shows up different than you expect. That's all.
Right.
It shows up like what was it, an owl or a turtle or whatever. You go, okay.
Right. Like, no, it shows up like, you know, you're getting fired from your job. Like, oh, that's an answer to my prayers. I guess it is. Right. So no, that makes a lot of sense. And, you know, and so I think actually I'm starting to feel motivated to, you know, to have us wrap pretty soon, because it's like a nice day, and I feel like going walking. But
good.
It's like figuring out that balance, you know, because there are things like journaling, and, I'm working on some furniture for my sister right now, and the yoga and the walking, and I'm going to the gym in the morning with my sister, and, and so figuring out that balance of when do I like structure my time to do the things I know to do. And then when do I let myself just lie on the floor like a jellyfish that, cause I feel like that sometimes. And so.
Well, you need that. You need that. I went through a period one time, I was married and my kids and my husband was gone, and they were gone for 2 weeks. And I had projects, when he was gone, I was going to do this and do that. And the only thing I could do was sleep.
Yes.
And I would get up and it was like I was on drugs and I'd have to go back to bed. Yes. I was still working part-time, but I also know that was a spiritual awakening in a lot of ways for things to settle in,
Yes. Well, so you get it. It's like,
totally.
Like the dark night of the soul may sound very dramatic and, because it does feel that way, but I'm starting to like wonder, just like out of like curiosity, when people go through spiritual awakenings, it seems a lot of times like we do go through one like around our 20s, like our mid 20s. I'm seeing, these other women.
A pattern, right.
A pattern. But just because you go through an awakening, it may not be the end all be all. It may not be that suddenly your life is like perfect. It's just, it may be gearing you up for whatever's next. I mean, it geared me up for, 20 years of my life of, for the most part, of activism and like, and super high energy,
Mm-hmm.
But now it's like, okay, now what, and like, so now it's going to be 50 but maybe it will come to me. Like maybe it will come to me in my meditations or my dreams, or like, I'll know whatever that is. And, one of the things that you teach about is the medicine wheel. And you talk about, that stage of like, you've talked about for a while that I've been in the West, but I might be approaching the North.
Right. Well, see, and that's the thing is it's only been in the last, year and a half, I've been really thinking about it, because what we're talking about, you see the patterns. And so what's very familiar and great is the inner child. And we all have had wounded inner childs or children inside of ourselves that still need care or having fun and playing. And then when you go into the West, is what you're talking about is, 30 to let's say 45 or 48. And it's like what you're talking about. Okay, past 20s, you kind of live life, you go here, you go there, and then all of a sudden things start happening at different times. It could be, you're sure where you're going. And when you look back, you go, well, that was good, but I could have done it easier. Because you're so directed and you think and everything. But as you come around to the North, which was where I am now, I look back and I go, because being older and being a woman in that era, a lot of us took the hard road. We are, that codependent pleasing at any cost to keep things going, keep your boss happy, do this, keep the husband happy. Just, couldn't figure anything out. And you could have just said no. Nicely, you could say no. But then when you're as you're moving into the North, you really start addressing your wisdom, thinking, how do I want to be effective and yet be loving and kind and compassionate and set boundaries? And then you see these, like when you're looking back at people that are in those parts and how directed they are. Like when I see people in the West and they think they're moving and grooving, and just say, slow down. Really smell the roses, see what's going on in your heart. Because a lot of times they're not connected to the heart unless they have a spiritual practice or they're driven. But in the North, you're really aware of that, because so many people, as they come around, I don't know what age, but let's say 50, 55, they begin to realize life, they could die. It could be over. So what's the next step? And the part I end up talking to people about in that era is the age group. Okay, what are you going to do? What is it you haven't done that you want to do? What are your dreams? And what I find is a lot of people, and even like where you're at, can't really identify their dreams. That's really hard to do. it's harder than it was before. You know, like, you want to go to Paris, or you want to go to Thailand, but then you get into the north and it's like it's not available now. I don't know what that is.
That's absolutely right. I mean, like in my 20s, it was all like in front of me.
Right.
And so what do I want to do? You know, and yes, I want to travel, but then I want to become an environmentalist. Did I know what that was? No. But did I find it? Yes.
Right.
You know, and did decades of that. And then I wanted to travel, and I knew I wanted to travel, and I did that. You're absolutely right. Like right now I'm like, okay, it's almost like I'm looking at a blank slate and I don't know what I want to do. And that's actually kind of terrifying, because it's
scary. It's really scary. And think about these people that are 10 years older than you and really have no dreams and don't feel physically, let's say they could do a half marathon. Now maybe they could, but they don't feel they could. You know what I mean? It's a whole different premise. It's much more wisdom of really positioning yourself. One of the things that you said today is, I'm going to develop more of a practice. Once you do that and spirit comes in more, it gets to be a puzzle that fits together. You know, more of like, okay, if, for instance, one of the things is and you've heard this across the board at different times, if you had, a year to live or 10 years to live, what is it you want to achieve? Now, that sounds pretty simplistic. Not really. I mean, it's a huge question, as to where do you want to go? What do you want to do? What kind of project? Do you want to finish that book? Do you want to do interviews? Do you want to be on TV? Meaning being that force that, you see these interviewers now with all this political stuff. And you go, wow, those people are amazing.
Yes. Well, and that's how I was in my 20s. Like I would get on CNN in my 20s and early 30s, and I was a force. And so like now I don't know that I want that so much as like
that's what I mean.
But what does seem shiny to me is the sharing of the wisdom. Like even though I'm like learning and like I'm playfully resentful of my sisters that are, 25 and that are going through this awakening, and they have so much wisdom as well, but then I'm like, well, what happened? Right. Cause I went through it and here I am again. But yeah, like, even some of them are saying, get out there and share it. And so, yes, I do want to write the book, and like, would I want to interview and talk to people about that? Or, I'm seeing people who have started like spiritual programs to interview people like we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
This is really enjoyable to me. I mean, I could talk to you all day. Right.
Right.
And so, and I'm sure there's other people out there that it'd be fascinating to talk to them. And so, yeah, I think I'd like to try my hand at some of that, recognizing that I still need to figure out how to, support myself and my lifestyle. But it's like that old saying of like, that I used to tell myself in my 20s, like, just follow your bliss and the money will follow.
Right.
But like when you're in it, it's hard to remember that. But yeah, it's like if I just.
Well, and the thing is, you have the spiritual awakening. You did that in your 20s, but now you have the wisdom. And there's, I don't remember exactly, but there's one gal who was like 15 or 16, and she put makeup on and did videos on it. And now she's getting paid crazy amounts of money. So if you know what I mean, there's even a business in these things, big business. Sure. So I mean, there's that too, and I mean, just doing all kinds of interesting things, or being an activist and interviewing. I guess I heard on the radio today that Oprah went into Starbucks or somewhere, and they wrote on her coffee cup. And the woman said, I don't know how to spell that name. So what it meant is she didn't know who it was. And the radio interviewers were kind of laughing. They said, how would you not know Oprah? But see, she was young enough that she didn't know.
Yes, I see.
You know what I mean? And it's just kind of interesting because it's such a, there's so much in different things. And of course, I don't know if she ever was told who she is, but there's an information part that you have from your wisdom of doing all these things. That somebody that's maybe 22 just from your journeys or your travels or your Kundalini awakening would say, oh, well, tell me what that means. Maybe I've had that. I don't know.
Yes. Right. So that's encouraging. Like there's a combination of like just sharing where I'm at, and maybe other people are going through it, but maybe also my life experience, like moving into wisdom is a place like I might have something to offer as someone who's
you have a lot to offer
going into the wisdom mode.
Right. But that's the whole point. You've done these things, and you've done the adventures of hiking, great mountains and having spiritual awakenings and going through the massage and doing that. Now, okay, like the 2 videos we saw, those girls, when I say girls because they're in their 20s, but those girls might appreciate the drive that you had doing that, because then it would make a little more sense what they're going through. But see, you were driven enough to have the massage and to do the training. So you were supported in that, where the one little gal is home kind of alone, the Irish girl, and the other girl's in school.
Right. Well, right. Because I was getting downloads at that time.
Right.
Like I remember a very clear one, and I think I was in Thailand, but I heard, I'm a healer. I need to find a teacher. Well,
right.
Well, thank you. And I wound up not doing anything with that, like, because like the massage is a healing modality, and I know that it's needed on the planet, like, but I wound up choosing, for whatever reason, my own reasons, another path and a passion, using my head to, protect Mother Earth, and doing it in a very political, kind of intellectual way. And I'm glad I did. I mean, I enjoy that stuff so much. But then there is still the healing, side of things. And
well, but what I was talking about more was you were getting the support by doing the training. When you were going through, let's call it the dark day of the soul in your 20s, you were engaged in healing. And so you were getting body work and giving body work. So you were being the healer.
I was. And I was getting healed. Okay, thank you.
You see what I mean? And you were getting it. And these girls they don't really have the venue that you had, because you were in Thailand and you were driven.
Yes.
And that's where the wisdom comes in, because you can kind of say, what are you doing for your body, let's say, as you're going through this awakening or this dark day of the soul.
Right. And did all of the stuff that I was doing as far as yoga and the body work. Did it actually trigger the Kundalini awakening? I think the answer is it actually did.
Sure.
And so, but that's even good to tell myself now, like, well, why don't I go back to the body? Because it is such a powerful place to go, is to, start over again on the yoga and see what that does for me. Because it opens up a lot. But yeah, the one woman was like, saying that she almost, at the end of the dark night of her soul, she almost wound up in India. And that's what she thought she was going to do, is go and pray. And I was feeling the very same way when I was in Thailand. Was I wanted to like go to like a Buddhist monastery.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I felt the same way, but I actually wound up having a spiritual like crisis. And I thought I was dying, and I fled back to the United States. And she wound up saying that she's really grateful that she didn't go to India, because it wasn't the right time. And I can totally relate, because it's really scary to be in another culture and to be having this like huge awakening. Right. But then the downside is like, and I've recognized this, like coming back to the United States, there's something about being in the United States. I don't know if it's like this wherever you're from, but I get locked into programming here. And it's like, even when I went out to, first Turkey and then India, maybe back in 2007 or so, with friends, I saw very clearly in a very psychic or shamanistic way that there's kind of a bubble over the United States, and that I'm very much in kind of mind control here. And we all are. And I think that's why, again, I kind of am feeling a calling to get out of the States. Because it's like, for whatever reason, if I'm living in a place like Peru or wherever, I'm away from that complete lock on my mind. Does that make sense? It's like I know that sounds.
No, I just had this conversation with somebody 2 days ago, the same conversation about
And
the
so,
mind control in the
really,
state. Mhm.
yes. And so it's like, and I've been getting, like, I got it when I was in Turkey, and I continue to feel like it's true. Like what people call the American dream or whatever, it actually feels like we just are slaves. And like even working for these environmental nonprofits, like doing a good thing, like which is like in Buddhism, it's like right work, right? It's still like slavedom. And that's the thing. It's like when I was in Washington, D.C., I was still very much a slave. And even when I was in California, like we were doing good, interesting work, and it was a good company, but I didn't really have a lot of balance. Like, and how many of our other people do? It's like, let my people go. People are enslaved,
Right.
to the economic systems. And I don't know what to do about it other than like, all I'm hearing now is like, like my journey in my 20s and 30s and 40s, I was looking for people to love me and approve of me and understand me. And there's something about getting to this place again, and everything I've gone through in my social circles where my friends don't understand me, because I felt this great need to explain what was happening to me. Because I felt like if they knew what I knew or what I was experiencing, they would understand it. And they might get some of the wisdom, right?
Right.
I finally come to the place where it's like, my family doesn't need to know what I'm thinking.
Right.
I don't need to convince them, and it's like, thank God I have people like you, who have studied shamanism, and you understand what some of that stuff is. I mean, some of that stuff is like purging and dancing with the dark side of your soul, like,
Right.
And like integrating your shadow stuff. Anyway.
And a lot of people aren't going to understand it. That's why I said a lot of times you feel crazy. And one of the gifts of the wisdom is when you come to the awareness that you don't have to convince anybody of anything. And that was even kind of like what I was saying in my blog. What I do now, like even in my 40s and even early 50s, if somebody asked me a question about whatever, I felt it was my right and my divine order to explain to them or to help them in that direction. And now I don't do that as much because they have to ask me a couple times and then I decide if it's really worth it for me to do that, because there's no point in convincing. When people have a spiritual awakening or a drive, they will chase you down. They will say, do you know what I'm talking about, which you've said? And what do you think about this? And you go, okay, they're committed, kind of. They kind of get that this is not for the faint at heart. It's a very serious commitment. And then you can engage and explain some of these or say, yeah, I've gone through that. I don't know what it means. Sometimes the I don't know is a good thing.
Right. No, this is not, it hasn't been an easy path, right? But it's like even
Right.
like seeing the movie The Matrix or whatever, I mean, they get out and they're fighting to get out of the Matrix. And I think that that's a little bit of what this is like, we're so conditioned to be doing things a certain way.
Right.
And, I'm not blasting everything that people have done or do, right? But that's just like what it is. But that life, that paradigm doesn't leave a lot of room for evolution, is like one of the words that I've been getting from listening to people that are talking about the dark night of the soul. Is that this is actually like spiritual awakenings, and going through this is an evolution. And it's like, so the more we share, I think maybe it's like more of us, and I think it's happening to more of us. So
Right.
one way is to share it. Because I think one of these women were talking about like, it's like points of light, and we're kind of like all over the globe. And so maybe by sharing, we'll like connect, but also by sharing that maybe we're showing other people like a path.
Yes.
I think what you're saying though is like, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be a cakewalk.
No, and not only that, the thing is that, okay, if we don't call it the dark day of the soul, we call it these different ranges of initiation.
Can I just make a little joke?
Sure. Go ahead.
They call it the dark night of the soul. You keep calling it the dark day of the soul.
Oh,
but it's totally fine because it happens in the daytime too. So
right, right.
But yes.
Cute. But
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing is you go through all these initiations because you're never done. And when I've been a medium all my life, and so even when souls are over on the other side, they're connecting because they want to know that their life mattered and that they can still communicate and that you still have a relationship. And see, that's a pretty far out thought. But the truth is, it's equally important to share what their experience might be on the other side if they want to do that, because they only search out people that will listen to them usually, like somebody like me. And I'm kind of, I'm discerning as to who I listen to, because you don't need to listen to everybody. But the other part is such an important part, because we're growing and we're doing, and the thing like what you're saying, and with those two young women, you've been at a different point, and now you can say to them, okay, I'm almost 50, and guess what? I'm here again.
Right. And I don't want to scare them, because like I can't wait to see like what happens for them next. Like one of them is saying that she's going to either move to like Oregon, Washington area, or, maybe to like the Asheville area. I don't want to talk about her too much, but
right.
She's saying that because all she wants is like a little cabin and to create community. Right. And I just want to laugh, because I'm like, that's all I wanted. Right. Like that's part of like, I think being in your 20s and 30s, I really just wanted to create community. And I guess in my own way, I did find it and I did create it. But now, like, at least in my own process, I've had to go through basically, and forgive me for this, but like killing off like everybody that I thought was my friend or my community,
right.
And some of them have hung on and they're like, okay, we're not going to let you go. And that's, God bless them for that. I appreciate it. But, I've walked a pretty painful path socially for the past like 2 or 3 years to get to this place of, what they're calling cocooning, because it's like isolating, because like, how else would I go through this, whatever, death? But anyway, I know you said something, like a couple of things that were pretty powerful there. And I think we've been more than an hour, so we'll wrap pretty soon. But, you said, and I got it, it gave me some context of that we go through initiations at various stages. So theoretically, it's not like you're supposed to, like maybe you are, like maybe you're supposed to do this in your 20s and you get someplace or not. You're just doing your path and you're evolving and you're growing, and that's great. And it gave me a lot of energy to be an activist. But now I'm almost 50, and guess what? I'm going through it again. Well, 50 is a gateway, isn't it? Like 50 is a major.
Totally.
It's an issue. So it's okay. It's okay that I'm doing this again at 50, because this is my initiation. I think
if people really understand that you continue doing it, what I see with my friends and myself is then 60 is the same way. Because people say, it doesn't matter if it's male or female. I say, oh my God, I can't believe I'm 60. Yeah. And other people are 60. But also they're redefining what they want to do the rest of their lives. So it's another type of initiation. And how do you embrace that?
Yes.
And how do you, like now you're emptying yourself and you're in cocooning. But what's the next push? Now you're waiting to see what that is. But on another level, it could be pretty exciting because you could really be on track.
Oh, yeah, thank God. Because it doesn't feel like on track. It feels like breakdown and scary, right. And where am I going? But going back and looking at it in context, I didn't know in my 20s either. Mm-mm. And then look at all that journey.
That's what I mean. Look what happened after.
And then now they're saying like it's cocooning, and it is a kind of a death. Because like parts of your identity get killed off and then you become like a newborn child. Well, isn't that great? Right? Some people don't get there until their deathbed.
Right. Exactly.
You know what I mean? And so it's like having that, I'm remembering this from one of my courses, but having that Zen mind, beginner's mind thing. Well, then it's exciting.
Right.
Then it becomes exciting again because it's like, okay, get my practices back in place. Charge back up and get back out there for 20 years. Go run, go do whatever that is. Yeah.
Well, I think that's one of the things that I'm just very clear on is that, okay, let's assume that people like cancer women, you and I, are introverts, really. But part of our thing is, I mean, we have to have that time alone. There's no question. But also the other part is saying yes, like doing the video, getting out there, talking to people. Like when I went to Soul Cycle, I had the vision to tell this gal who absolutely thought I was crazy that I would do a reading for her. And even to myself, I said, oh, and there's, this is Stanford Shopping Center with Silicon Valley people. And I go up to her and I say, I had this thing and I really want to do a reading for her, for you, Casey. And she looked at me as though I'm complete Fruit Loops, this older woman who I have no idea who she is. So I said, well, when you're done with teaching Soul Cycle in Stanford, can we talk? So I had the choice to stand there and wait for her. Now that was intimidating because there's now 50 more people coming into the next class and they're all yuppie-fied and, like I said, hip and cool. And I'm standing there and my voice goes, just stay here and wait and talk to her. So here's this very hip, red hair girl down to her waist, gorgeous, interesting. And she looks at me like, you are crazy. And she said, I've never done anything like this. And I said, yes, I know, but I'd like to do it. But see, there's getting out there. If I'm suggesting to my clients to get out there, if I'm not willing to follow those messages, I can't support you or anybody else. So when the vision is talk to Casey, I'm going, really? You've got to be kidding. And I did it. And I just kind of laughed as I walked out the door because I knew she just thought I was crazy. But I sent her an email. Like I said I would, and I sent her my website, and I wrote her a couple times. Did she contact me? No, but maybe down the road she'll think about it, thinking, well, maybe I do need some whatever, But like I said, we all have to keep saying yes to getting out there, even if it's crazy.
Wow, well, good for you for listening to that, and and being courageous. Even if she's not responding
Right.
at this time, because you are that guide, right? And you have a lot to give. And
well, and I really felt strongly that there was something that she needed to talk to somebody about. It wasn't, I really felt, and I don't know what it was because I have no idea, but I felt that there was something that I could help her with. I knew that there was a question she had. It could be she's a born-again Christian and she's deciding to go to be a missionary. I don't know. But I knew there was something that I could support her in her own initiations,
Yes. Yes.
But, all you can do is offer and get out there.
Yes. Well, this has been wonderful, and it's provided a lot for me. And so I look forward to receiving
another
the video.
one.
Yeah, well, let's do another one soon. But
okay,
you'll send this to me, and then
I will.
It's okay if I post it somewhere, and
absolutely.
And you might post it as well if you want to. And
yes.
All right. Thank you, Linda.
Okay. Thank you. Have a blessed day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. I'll talk to you.
Okay, good.